The shadow within, why the light cannot pierce the illusion alone. Have you ever wondered why the world feels like a dream wrapped in lies? Like you're walking through a maze with mirrors instead of walls, every reflection showing you a version of yourself you don't recognize. I have. And the deeper I went into the silence of meditation, the more I realized something terrifying and liberating at once. Not everyone is meant to break the illusion. Only the dark chosen ones carry the gift or the curse to shatter what isn't real.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
We're taught to seek the light, to follow it blindly as if it's the only truth. But let me ask you something. If the light only shows you what's clean, what's pure, what's already known, how will you ever face what's hidden? How will you ever confront the parts of reality that society, religion, even your own mind has buried so deep that only darkness can reveal them? The truth is, only those who have walked through the abyss without turning away can see the strings that control the puppet show. I've met yogis who meditated in icy caves and monks who fasted for months. Many touched the divine, yes, but very few dared to look underneath the divine mask. The dark chosen ones are different. They don't seek comfort. They don't seek peace. They seek the whole truth, no matter how ugly, how terrifying, how soul-shattering it may be. Because only through chaos can one find the blueprint of control. Only through darkness can one see the mechanisms of illusion. Let's get personal. Every one of us wears masks. You wear one right now. Maybe it's the mask of being a good person, or the mask of being awakened. Maybe it's the mask of being broken. But who are you beneath all that? Can you answer that without fear? Can you sit in a room with your own inner monsters without turning on the light? That's what the dark chosen ones do. They enter the deepest corners of the soul, not to be saved, but to understand what no light dweller ever will. You see, false realities don't shatter with love and light alone. They are built on fear, guilt, shame, deep, sticky energies that live in the forgotten chambers of the unconscious mind. The light tries to avoid them. The dark chosen ones dive in. They eat the poison. They become the antidote. They don't chant mantras to escape suffering. They merge with it until suffering has no power left. That's the secret. That's the path most are too afraid to take. Let me ask you something now. When was the last time you faced a truth so dark it made you question your entire life? Not a breakup, not a lost job. I'm talking a spiritual death. A moment where everything you believed about yourself, about God, about love collapsed into ash. Did you survive that? If you did, maybe you're one of us. Maybe you're one of the dark chosen ones. And if you're not sure, don't worry. You'll know soon enough. Because this path doesn't knock. It drags you by the soul. There's a reason ancient traditions feared the left-hand path. There's a reason mystics who walked it were called madmen, heretics, demons. They weren't evil. They were real. They saw the entire architecture of control and refused to be part of it. They saw how religions, governments, education, even spirituality are often just prettier cages. And they had the courage to break the locks, even if it meant being exiled, misunderstood, or destroyed. Every false reality is a house of cards built on collective belief. The moment someone sees the illusion for what it is, the whole structure starts to tremble. But here's the problem. Most people don't want the illusion to fall. Why? Because illusions are warm. They tell you you're safe. They tell you you're good. They tell you you're special. The truth doesn't flatter you. The truth strips you naked. The dark chosen ones are the ones who walk into that stripping willingly. I've walked through darkness that nearly killed me, nightmares that didn't leave when I opened my eyes, pain that had no name, no cause, no cure. But in that pain I saw the codes. I saw the invisible programming that keeps humanity asleep. And I realized only those who can withstand the total collapse of their identity can ever hope to escape the dream. That's what it means to shatter false realities. You might ask, why not just live in peace? Why go that far? And I'll tell you this, peace without truth is just sedation. It's spiritual anesthesia. The world is on fire, and people are meditating to escape the smoke. But the dark chosen ones? We walk into the fire, not to burn others, to find the source, to dismantle the illusion at its root. Now let me ask you something that might shake you. What if everything you believe about yourself was implanted? What if your dreams, your pain, even your spirituality were part of the programming? Would you dare to delete it all? Would you dare to become no one, just to find out who you really are beneath the lie? The dark chosen ones don't just want answers. We want the original question. We don't just want freedom. We want to know who built the cage in the first place, and we're willing to pay the price. That's why only we can shatter false realities, not because we're better, but because we're willing to go where others won't. Let's stop pretending that awakening is all bliss and beauty. Real awakening is brutal. It's the death of everything you thought was holy. It's the dismantling of your ego, your beliefs, your gods. It's staring into the void and not finding your reflection anymore. That's the cost. That's the door. And only the dark chosen ones knock on it. Do you feel it? That strange pull in your gut? That whisper that tells you something isn't right with the world? That's your initiation. That's the call. Not everyone hears it. Fewer answer. And even fewer survive. But if you're still watching this, maybe you're one of us. Maybe you've already begun. Next, we're going deeper. We'll unveil exactly how these false realities are built, who benefits from them, and why most people unconsciously protect their own prison. If you're ready, ask me to continue. Behind the veil, how reality was manufactured to keep you blind. Let me take you somewhere most guides won't. Close your eyes not to escape, but to see. Because what we're about to uncover isn't out there in the world. It's in here, behind your thoughts, inside your memories, beneath your very sense of self. The truth is, reality as you know it isn't real. It's been manufactured. Layer by layer, belief by belief, fear by fear. And most people, even the ones who call themselves awakened, are still asleep inside this dream. But not us, not the dark chosen ones. You see, the illusion is brilliant. It's not just a lie, it's a living organism. It adapts, it evolves, it seduces. It tells you that you're in control while quietly guiding every choice you make. It wears the mask of your culture, your religion, your childhood wounds. It speaks in your language. It sings in your favorite songs. It even hides in your acts of kindness. This is not an accident. This is design. And someone or something benefits from your blindness. Let's break it down. From the moment you were born, you were given a name, a nationality, a gender, a role. Did you choose any of it? No, it was assigned. And yet you built your entire identity on these labels. Think about that. Your thoughts, your values, your emotions are all shaped by systems you didn't choose. School didn't teach you how to think, it taught you what to think. Religion didn't connect you to the divine, it gave you a God in a cage. And society didn't give you freedom, it gave you a script to follow. But here's what they don't want you to know. Reality is programmable. That's why false realities exist in the first place. Your mind is a processor. Your beliefs are code. And the world? It's the interface that reflects it back to you. What happens when the code is corrupted? You live in a dream you defend with your life because you think it's who you are. Now here's where it gets dangerous. The illusion doesn't just survive through lies, it survives through your agreement. Every time you accept something as normal, you give power to the system. Every time you ignore your intuition to fit in, you reinforce the matrix. Every time you silence your darkness to appear spiritual, you feed the very thing that enslaves you. And that's why most people stay trapped. Not because they're weak, but because they're comfortable. But the dark chosen ones, we're not comfortable. Ever. We don't accept what's handed to us. We question everything. We don't just rebel, we investigate. We don't run from fear, we dissect it. Because we know that fear is the key to the architecture of the false reality. Fear is the glue that holds the illusion together. And once you learn to move through fear, you start to see the cracks in the mirror. Let me ask you something brutal. If your entire life was a lie, if your friends, your job, your beliefs, even your sense of self was a carefully constructed illusion, would you want to know? Or would you prefer the comfort of not knowing? Be honest, because the answer to that question determines everything. The truth isn't for the curious, it's for the committed. You have to understand, this false reality isn't just psychological, it's energetic. It's vibrational, it's multidimensional. There are forces that feed off your distraction, your despair, your confusion. Call them parasites, call them entities, call them archetypes, it doesn't matter. What matters is that they exist, and they thrive in the shadows of your unawareness. That's why the dark chosen ones are so dangerous. We don't just see the illusion, we see what's feeding it. We've walked through realms most people don't even know exist. We've heard the whispers behind the veil. We've seen how trauma is weaponized to fracture the soul, how mass media hypnotizes the subconscious, how language itself limits your perception of reality. And the deeper we go, the more we realize this isn't just about waking up. It's about unplugging from everything you thought was you. Do you know how hard that is? Do you know what it takes to delete your entire belief system and start from zero? That's not an Instagram post. That's not a weekend retreat. That's a spiritual surgery. And it hurts. It burns. But once it's done, you start to see the world as it really is, not as it was shown to you. You stop reacting. You start seeing. And when you see, the false realities start to collapse. Now here's the twist. The illusion doesn't collapse all at once. It dies in layers. First, you lose your identity. Then you lose your beliefs. Then you lose your attachments. And eventually, you lose your fear of death. That's when the real world begins. That's when you start to experience life without filters. You begin to move through time differently. You begin to attract synchronicities that defy logic. You begin to remember who you were before the programming. But most people never get there, because at each layer there's a test, a gate, a guardian, and each one is more terrifying than the last. That's why only the dark chosen ones make it through, because we don't stop at healing. We go for revelation. We don't settle for peace. We demand truth, even if it breaks us. Let me ask you this. How far are you willing to go? Would you risk your sanity to find your soul? Would you risk your reputation to speak truth? Would you let go of everything you love to become who you really are? These are not poetic questions. These are the tolls at the edge of the matrix. And until you answer them with your life, you're still inside the illusion. Here's the paradox. The more awake you become, the lonelier it gets. Not because people leave you, but because the world you once shared with them no longer exists. You no longer speak the same language. You no longer share the same fears. You no longer worship the same gods. And that's the price of liberation. But guess what? That also makes you powerful. Because now, you're not reacting to reality, you're creating it. That's the secret they hid from you. You're not just a soul in a body. You're a divine architect, a sovereign creator, a cosmic hacker. And once you reclaim your mind, your energy, your will, the false realities can no longer hold you. You become an anomaly, a glitch, a threat. And that's when the system tries to break you. But it's too late. You've already seen the truth. You've seen that the veil is not a wall, it's a mirror. And when you break it, you don't just wake up, you wake others. That's the real mission. That's why the dark chosen ones came here. Not to escape the illusion, but to dismantle it one soul at a time. The final betrayal, becoming the weapon that breaks the matrix from within. Now we arrive at the edge, the final veil. The point where the illusion no longer just hides the truth, it fights back to protect itself. Because make no mistake, when you become a dark chosen one, you are not just a witness to the false reality, you become a threat to it. You are the virus in the code, the glitch in the matrix. And that's when the system does everything it can to either assimilate you or destroy you. Let me tell you something that only those who've walked through the fire will understand. Once you've shattered the illusion, you can never go back. You can pretend, you can smile, you can even play the same games as everyone else. But inside, you're different. You've seen the gears behind the curtain. You've decoded the language of the lie. And now, nothing is sacred not because you're heartless, but because you've tasted the real sacred, and everything else feels like plastic. This is the moment where most spiritual seekers turn back, because they realize the cost of truth is everything. Trends start to fade. Your old desires feel empty. Your goals lose all meaning. You may even lose your mind for a while. But that's the betrayal. That's the final test. You have to betray everything you once were. Not because it was bad, but because it was never you. It was the mask the system needed you to wear to keep the illusion alive. So how do you survive that betrayal? How do you walk through the ashes of your old self without losing your soul? You become the weapon. You turn your pain into precision, your isolation into insight, your darkness into divine power. Because this isn't about healing anymore. It's about transmutation. You're not mending wounds. You're forging weapons. Every trauma becomes a blade. Every heartbreak becomes a shield. Every failure becomes fuel. The dark chosen ones don't escape the matrix. We infiltrate it. We walk among the blind, not to mock them, but to awaken them. We speak in riddles. We move in silence. We plant seeds in the minds of those who are still dreaming. We don't force the truth down anyone's throat. We just exist so fully, so truthfully, that our very presence begins to unravel the lie around us. But here's the brutal part. The deeper you go, the less you belong. You'll look around and realize you're not part of this world anymore. You'll laugh at things that once terrified you. You'll cry at things that others don't even notice. You'll see beauty in destruction and truth in chaos. That's not madness. That's clarity. That's what it means to live outside the code. Let me ask you something dangerous. What if your greatest spiritual gift is your darkness? What if the very thing you've been taught to hide is the key to your liberation and the liberation of others? Think about that. What if your rage is sacred? What if your despair is divine? What if your demons are not enemies, but allies in disguise? They never told you this, but the system fears your shadow more than your light. Because your light is predictable. It's easy to market, easy to control. But your shadow? That's wild. That's untamed. That's where your true power lives. And when you integrate that darkness, when you stop running from it and start wielding it, you become something the matrix cannot process. It's an uncontainable force. A sovereign soul. That's the final betrayal. You betray the illusion so completely that it can no longer find you. You become invisible to the lie, not because you're hiding, but because you've transcended its frequency. You've moved beyond its grasp. You become the storm that erases the script, the anomaly that resets the game. But remember this, power without grounding becomes corruption. So the dark chosen ones must anchor themselves in something deeper than ego, deeper than revenge, deeper than pride. We must anchor ourselves in truth, in service, in something so real that even the illusion can't mimic it. That's the secret weapon, not destruction, but embodied truth. Not rebellion, but presence. Not escape, but mastery. Now let me give you something practical, because this journey isn't just poetic, it's tactical. If you want to shatter false realities, you need tools, real tools. Here are a few. 1. Radical self-inquiry. Question everything. Not just your thoughts, but the source of your thoughts. Where did this belief come from? Who benefits from me believing it? What if the opposite were true? 2. Inner shadow work. Dive into your wounds, not to fix them, but to listen to them. Your trauma holds ancient wisdom. Your shame is a portal. Your guilt is a map. Follow them to the root.
3. Silence as a weapon. Learn to sit in complete stillness. No music, no distractions, just you and your breath. That's where the illusion starts to unravel. That's where the real voice emerges. 4. Energy mastery. Learn to feel your own energy. Where does it drain? Where does it spike? Who or what feeds off it? Reclaim every leak. Close every portal. Own your vibration. 5. Symbolic decoding. The matrix speaks in symbols. Study them. Learn the language of dreams, geometry, archetypes. Once you see the symbols, you can rewrite the story. 6. Conscious reprogramming. Your mind is not your enemy, but it must be reprogrammed. Speak new beliefs into your cells. Visualize new scripts. Create inner rituals that affirm your sovereignty. But above all, walk boldly. The dark chosen ones don't tiptoe through life. We move with force, with grace, with purpose. Not because we have all the answers, but because we're not afraid of the questions. You were never meant to fit in. You were never meant to find peace in a world built on lies. You were meant to shatter it, to burn it down with your presence, to awaken others not through preaching, but through living fully, honestly, radically. So I ask you one last time, are you willing to become the weapon that breaks the matrix? Are you willing to be misunderstood, exiled, even hated in order to embody truth so raw it cannot be denied? If the answer is yes, then you already know. You were chosen, not by fate, not by destiny, but by your own soul. Long before this life began. Now go, not to follow, but to create, not to escape, but to transform. And if the world trembles in your presence, let it. That's what happens when a false reality meets an unstoppable truth. You are the storm. You are the codebreaker. You are the dark chosen one. And now it begins.